Risings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite.
Hey, welcome everyone. Aaron here. Welcome to the Rebel Alliance podcast. I am your host as always, and we are seriously late today, and I'm going to explain why in a minute. But first of all, thank you for those that are joining and jumping on. I do appreciate it. I know the scheduling has been crazy and we haven't been consistent like I said we were going to, but hopefully these things are going to work themselves out. So before we jump into today's episode, as always, none of this constitutes as tax or legal advice. It's just one person's thought on the topic. So the reason, well, I guess, before I get into the reason, let's take care of some housekeeping first. So great news for those of you who do not know, the websites were all down for a few weeks, almost a month, and my phone's still not on vibrate. So let me get rid of that. And all right. So that being said, East Coast PMA, the PMAmanifesto.com are both up and running. So if you're looking for more information, you can head over to eastcoastpma.com and you can find DIY templates. You can book consulting time with me. You can find other articles, past episodes, all that good stuff over there. And the same thing, if you would like to reach out to the ladies over at the PMAmanifesto.com, pick up a copy of the PMA Manifesto. PMA Manifesto, you can get that over there also, along with DIY templates. We have our monthly call with them coming up shortly. I think it's going to be the second week in March, or it's the first week in March. You'll know if you're part of the newsletter, and I only know because one of them shoots me a text message and says, "Hey, you need to get on. We're having a call." So, and the best part is it's free. We say 45 minutes, usually goes an hour, if not longer sometimes, but we allow you to come in, interact with us, ask your questions about associations, and you don't get just my perspective on it. You also have the two Angelas and Erica that are normally on the call. And that being said, the only other thing that I really have to cover, as I've been saying in the past couple videos, is that if you have not gone over to Start9 yet, you need to get over there and get yourself one of their Start9 embassy servers, whether it's for you and your family or for your association. There is a lot you can do with them, everything from encrypted text messages to text messages that burn after reading, to running your own Lightning node, to running your own basically your own bank account or your own bank or your own version of PayPal using Bitcoin. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that you can do with it, from running your own Chat GPT version with your own language models and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. I enjoy mine. I've been using it for a while. And the best part is, if you have documents and you want to be able to access them, or anything for that matter of fact, anywhere across the globe, or the flat earth, depending on what side of that coin you're on, you can then, access that from wherever you are. So if you use the code Rebel Alliance right there on the screen, if I could read, you get 9% off just for going over there and using that code. Now, I know some of you have used that, and I really appreciate it. And if you are into stacking sats, as it's called, or you're on Nostr, and if you're not on Nostr, you should be. It is a very free speech protocol. It looks a little bit like X, but it is completely free speech, and you can block people so you don't have to see stuff you don't want to. But I am on Nostr. Feel free to get over there and let me know when you're on it. Shoot me a message on there. I'd be more than happy to talk with you all on that platform. Plus, what's great about it is if you are a content creator, or you just like posting things, or you're like expressing yourself, people can leave you sats, and it's a value for value, and you can get an Albi wallet and get that all set up. And maybe I'll have somebody on from there at some point and explain all that, because I'm still a novice when it comes to it. I just kind of use it, and I really don't understand how it works sometimes. I mean, I get that it works with Lightning and stuff like that, but it's very convenient if you would like to have a value for value and stuff like that. So anyways, you can get over there. And yeah, so that being said, why are we so late today? So today I had to go out for the wife and get bread and buns and stuff like that for hamburgers tonight. And I had to go to Tractor Supply. I had to get some dog food. Long story short, I'm sitting in the parking lot at Aldi's, and this lady comes in, and I kind of saw out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, oh, she's coming in kind of tight. And a little fast maybe, and all of a sudden my truck's like, and I'm like, seriously, you just hit my truck. I am not even moving. I'm parked. I had just turned on the ignition. So anyways, I had to do photos because it's in a private parking lot, so the cops aren't going to do anything. And so I said, let me just get your information. I double checked with USAA on what I needed. And then, of course, her insurance card said it was expired, but she said it was good. So let's hope so. Fingers crossed. I don't know if I'm going to put in a claim yet or not. It's kind of just some road rash to my rim and a little scrape on the side of the truck, but it is a 2014. So I'm not too concerned, but we'll see how it drives. And if there's anything messed up with the steering when I take it on the highway, I've only been on some back roads with it. So that being said, we're going to get in today's topic, securing freedom, private membership associations versus the government interference in the tyrannical government. And I am going completely blind on this today. I have no notes. I have nothing. So if I get off topic, please in the comments, let me know and say, hey, Clown, get back on. Hey, Wizard, thanks for jumping on today. Good to see you here. And if you do have any questions, put them in the chat and I will answer them at the end of this. And so the reason why I brought up this topic today is for one main reason. I've been setting up some associations this past couple weeks. I've been dealing more so with actual government interference with people's associations, whether it's a ministry or a free church or just a regular old association. There has been a lot of pushback. And unfortunately, a lot of it's been here in Connecticut. And that being said, I figured there's just some things that we need to talk about because as I talk with others, they go to some of these other individuals. I'm sure you can figure out who I'm talking about. And they are getting, again, bad information. For example, you don't have to answer a cease and desist. You don't have to answer anybody that knocks on your door. I guess that's kind of true. But, at the same point, at the same time, if you're running an association, you don't want to be abrasive right off the rip, in my personal humble opinion. You kind of want to see what they have to say, but you don't have to let them into the building or anything like that. So, you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to answer any questions. Again, you can do all this stuff and listen to these other people, but you're going to be banging your head against the wall. And then you're eventually going to be contacting a constitutional attorney, or you're going to be calling somebody like myself that can kind of advise on a little bit of it. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I can't represent you or anything like that. I can't give legal advice. I can just tell you this is what I've done in this situation or what I would do if I was in your shoes. And then, at least here in Connecticut, we've got one attorney that I've been referring people to that's been helping. So they get that information. They get, you're in the private, they're not in their jurisdiction. You don't have to listen to zoning. You don't have to let the fire marshal in, all this types of stuff. Now, some of this stuff only applies if you have a commercial spot or if you're renting a building somewhere. Some of this stuff only applies if you're in a home. So if you are facing some of these situations, please use my contact information, reach out to me, schedule a time. I am recently going to be offering more of a consulting service, even though I'm not sure I really want to do that. But because I've been getting so many calls and it's been taking away from other things, I feel that, it might be something that's beneficial. So that being said, some of the ones here in Connecticut that we've been dealing with specifically have been with Office of the OEC, the Office of Education, OCE. I cannot remember what the heck they're basically the Licensed Department for Education. I don't even know what the heck their acronym is. OEC, something like that. Office of Early Childhood. Anyways, they've been coming after a few of these quote unquote unlicensed education facilities. And so they come in and they send their letters and they try to do their inspections and they, some of their tactics is they sit across the street and they take photos and they document people coming and going and kids getting dropped off. And they do drive-bys to see when people are there and what's happening in the foot traffic. And then they usually come up and they knock on the door and they want to know what's going on and that there's been reports of an unlicensed daycare education facility, whatever you would like to call it. And then they try to start their quote unquote investigation. Now, in Connecticut, we do have a certain statute that applies to religious organizations, which has helped us in this battle because the way I try to do things is help keep people out of the courthouse, because we do not have pockets as deep as the local government. And we do not want to be in there fighting day in and day out, paying an attorney a lot of money to fight on our right of association or freedom of religion. Now, there comes a time where you might have to do that, and it's an appropriate time. But for the things that are happening now, especially here in Connecticut and some other places, we can utilize things that are already in place. And that's why you'll always hear me say we need to have defense in depth. We hate to have multiple layers of defense, so to speak, and that you don't want to put everything into one basket. That's why sometimes we say use an anonymous LLC, a trust, maybe just an association, or a combination thereof. So once they come out and they start their investigation, you usually get a few letters and they say, hey, we're investigating this. We need to know what you're doing, and that's been the norm. And then we answer those emails or those letters, and I help people draft stuff and say, hey, this is a template, reword it so it sounds like it's coming from you, but this is the meat and potatoes of it, and this is what you need to convey to them. Now, in Connecticut, we do have a general state statute, and it's 19A-77. And in a nutshell, basically, it says that if you run a religious organization, it does not say church, it does not say ministry, it just says religious organization. You can have religious educational activities for your members' children. Now, there's a few nuances with that. Your members need to know that you're not licensed by I don't know why my watch is going off, early childhood, or the education license department, whatever the heck they're called. I don't know why I can't think of their name right now. It's probably because I didn't take any Alpha Brain before today's episode. And I've only had one cup of coffee today too, so that's probably not helping. But they basically say, hey, as long as your members, the state statute basically says, as long as your members know that you're not licensed, then you are exempt from licensing, being that you are a religious organization. And that allows, things to happen freely within your education facility. So there's no masking, there's not necessarily vaccination stuff going on, all those types of things. So I think the state's kind of getting smart. And so now we're starting to see zoning issues come up. So again, a lot of these other people will tell you, hey, you don't have to answer what these people say or what they ask you, or if they send you any letters. Kind of just bury your head in the sand like an ostrich, and they'll go away. And that's not the case. You'll eventually get a cease and desist. You'll end up with some type of complaint that you'll have to answer, or try to get the motion to dismiss and that sort of thing. So the way I've been helping people handle this, and others in the area, is you get this letter. We say, okay, here's what we have going on. Here's how we're exempt, and that sort of thing. And we basically utilize the IRS 14 points to say that you are a bona fide church, but even though we're not a church, we're a ministry or what have you. So that's been working really well. I think we beat off the state like 4 or 5 times now in Connecticut. But now what we're starting to see, and this with other places, is zoning issues. And so they come after with the fire marshal or zoning. So for example, we have one individual that has a church, and they're operating as a church. They're doing everything properly. And basically, because they were having a home church, they were doing everything out of their house because they were in the process of looking for a commercial property. They ended up getting a notice from, I think it was, the fire marshal and the zoning board, because the state was pretty much like, hey, did you know this is happening in this residential area? And so the zoning board had an issue with that. So when you are running your association, if you are doing anything on a large scale, or you're at that cusp of what would be an intimate association, and you are meeting regularly, and you have high foot traffic where you're going to draw people's attention, you want to make sure that if you are doing it in a residential area, that you are able to have, I don't want to say zone, like in some places that you can have a home business, in some places you can't. Even if it's like network marketing, you're not zoned for it, so to speak. So you want to make sure that if you do decide to have something out of your home, that you go to the zoning board and you say, hey, listen, this is what I'm looking to do. What do I have to do? Because zoning can shut you down very quickly. Zoning is a beast in all its own, because of the fact that everybody gives everybody else a handshake, pats everybody in the back, everybody's friends with somebody, and all it takes is, and you can try to appeal stuff to the zoning board and a public hearing and all that stuff, but it's not like your typical government agency, I guess, so to speak. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyways, basically it's a good old boy system and they can shut you down and they will. So it's better to go out there and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. Are there any requirements from you that you need from me to be able to run my association, to meet with my members? Kind of look at it as if you're going to run a business out of your house, right? Same type of principle. So anyways, these individuals got a place that's commercial, and that even had some issues with the fire marshal coming in. And I might be blending a few of these together in today's topics. I didn't write any of this stuff down, kind of going from memory here. And so the fire marshal wanted to, make sure that, hey, you don't have over so many people and this and that. Now, the fire marshal, and anybody should, if you have the best intentions of your members, or you have your members' best intentions, and you have the best intentions of the children that are coming, and you want to make sure everything's done properly, why would you not want to have the fire marshal come through and say, hey, listen, you need to have another egress door, or you're renting a space, or there's not enough smoke detectors in here, because that's something that falls on the landlord, and the landlord needs to provide that stuff. So I don't see a harm with that. Now, some people may not want that, and again, that's your battle to fight if you choose to. But the issue is now that some of these places are catching on to everybody starting up associations. It's not just Connecticut. We've seen it in Hawaii and Indiana, Michigan. I'm trying to think of some other places that we've seen some pushback. There's been a few, but there's a few others. And it starts off with people just not doing things properly, and so they try to come after them. So basically, what my point is that if you are going to be setting something up like this, like an association or a ministry or a church, you're going to be providing education. You want to see if there are any exemptions in your state, because again, our goal is to stay out of court and not have to deal with the tyrannical government at all, and to make sure all of our ducks are in the row. So if they do come knocking, we can hammer them down really fast and say, nope, see you later. This is how we're operating properly. So, that being said, like if you're in Hawaii, and we had, I mean, the group I was trying to help in Hawaii got really steamrolled, and there was, the time difference was difficult. There wasn't a lot that I could help them with, but in Hawaii, you can provide education to children or your members' children if and be unlicensed if you provide or if you teach the native Hawaiian language. And so even though we were in the process of getting that set up with them, it wasn't in current operation. So the state threw a huge fit and basically steamrolled all over them. And again, they were utilizing some space that they were renting and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different if you own the property, you have a little more pull. But again, we can't infringe on the rights of others when we're renting property from them. So we've also come into some issues with, some people operating outside of a church or within a church. And, the state, instead of knocking on the door of the individuals that are running the ministry or the education for the children, they go right to the church and they say, hey, did you know you have an illegal education facility? Now, if the church knew anything, or the synagogue or temple or mosque or wherever they're operating in knew that, at least here in Connecticut and 6 other states or 5 other states, that they have something similar on the books, that if you have that religious organization, you are exempt from licensing. And now we have to show why we're exempt and stuff like that. So there's and this is my biggest gripe, I think, is that there are a lot of issues with people getting bad information from others. And this is just somebody from Liberty House. I just gotta let them know. I'll call them right back. And they get all this bad information from these people online, and then they say, okay, well, I can do whatever I want. And like I've said it here 100 times, you can't run a brothel and a fentanyl factory if it's illegal in your area, which in most cases it is, right? Having that right of association does not keep you or allow you to break the law. And so there's certain things that we need to understand that are going to be challenges when we run these associations. And why is that? It's because the tyrannical, overreaching government does not want us to understand how we have this right of association, how we can assemble with our members, how we can come together for the collective good of a common goal. And they don't want us doing that. They don't want us teaching our kids. They want them in these indoctrination camps, I guess is the best way to put it, these public schools, and and stuff like that. And if you do send your kids to public school, like I do, we're in a good school system. I don't have the time to sit home and educate with everything I have going on. Alyssa works full time and stuff like that, but we also are combating it on a daily basis. So there's stuff that we do to interact with our children to combat some of the nonsense they're being taught at school. And if there is anything that I find extremely inappropriate, I'm at the board meetings, the town councils, the board of ed, and I'm bringing up these different topics. So that is just kind of some of the things that I wanted to discuss, because a lot of people get into this stuff and they don't realize that there are going to be challenges, because they're told that, hey, once you have an association, it's like all rainbows and unicorns, you can do whatever the heck you want, and that's not the case. So there's some things you can do, and I don't know if I can pull it up while I'm talking here. I'm trying to type as I search for the document I'm looking for. And there's some things you can do to hold some of these bad actors accountable. So if you are, let's say, let's see if I can find what I'm looking for here first before I get into this. And this is what happens when I don't have stuff ready to go. Um, let's see. Okay, so there's some things you can do to hold people accountable, and there is based under civil rights, and there's criminal complaints you can file against these individuals. So whether it's conspiracy against rights, deprivation of rights under the color of law, those are kind of some of the big ones. And I'm trying to. There is another one I was looking for, but I can't. I can't find it. But basically, under the 18 U.S. Code, Section 4242, there we go, is that it says whoever under the color of law, statute, ordinance, regulations, or customs willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, district of or district to deprive of any right, privilege, or immunity secured or protected by the constitutional law of the United States, or to defer punishment, penalties, blah blah blah, going on and on. Basically, it's saying that we have these rights, and here's a criminal code that allows us to bring complaints against individuals who are clothed in office, whether it's the zoning board or somebody like that specifically, and they say, hey, we don't care that you're a church, we're not letting you do something. Or they say, well, we looked at what you're doing and we consider you a daycare and not a church, so we're not going to let you do something. Well, they don't have the right to tell you what your sincere religious belief is. And if you are meeting the 14 requirements, and the majority of them that the IRS looks at to be considered a bona fide church, then who are they to trample on your rights and tell you that you can't do something? So there's things that we can do. I haven't had anybody get to that point yet, to be completely honest with you. But the point is that a lot of people get into these associations thinking that they can do whatever they want. And now Alyssa's calling me, so let me tell her, I'll call her right back. And so those are just some of the things that happen when you start getting these associations, or you start getting a lot of foot traffic. You might have somebody from the education department show up, or if you're selling goat's milk to your members, you might have somebody from the USDA, or you might have somebody go and tattle on you because they don't want to come and deal with you directly to the zoning board and say, hey, did you know this is going on? So you have to be prepared to handle these things when they arise. And that's why, we've seen an influx, or I've seen an influx this last month of this stuff happening, because I think more and more of these associations are getting set up. More and more people are taking self-custody of what they're doing and self-control, and they're not relying on, the big government to take care of them. And so what happens is this information gets out there. People, somebody might have applied for one of the associations and they were told no because their viewpoints didn't align with the mission of the association, and in their bylaws they had that option not to let somebody in. And so now they're complaining, and that's bringing heat against the association. So I always try to let people know when I speak with them that, hey, listen, if you're getting an association, a PMA, whatever you want to call it, and you are going to have members and you're going to be doing certain things, you are going to have to deal with the authorities at some point in time, whether it's somebody saying you're operating in an illegal education facility that's unlicensed, or that you're running a church out of your home and you're not zoned for it. And we have to be capable of either understanding that, hey, I don't want to have to fight with this stuff, so I'm going to hire somebody to do it for me, or I'm going to understand what my rights are, how I can combat this, what I need to say to these individuals, how I need to, you know, get this across to them. And if they continue to push me, what are some of my remedies as far as criminal complaints to file against these individuals? And I've got to call Dave today. I'm going to have him back on. We did an episode a while back, about a year ago now, maybe 2 years, where we talked about criminal complaints and keeping bad actors in check and using the deprivation of rights under the color of law and certain things like that, especially when we're talking, and this can go for your town councils, your board of ed. These are all the things that they're in a position of office. They're closed by office. So you can use these against them if they are infringing on your rights. And I don't think a lot of people understand this. Now, again, not saying to go slap, complaints against everybody, but try to do it, peacefully and amicably. And then if it doesn't work, or they're not listening to what you have to say and they are trying to overstep their bounds, well, then sometimes you've got to check somebody and put them in their place and say, no, you can't do that, and here's why. So I just, this is going to be a short episode today. We're really, normally we're earlier, so there's more people on, and I get that most of you watch the replays or the shorts or listen to the podcast itself. But just keep in mind, if you are getting an association, if you already have an association and you've gotten it from any of the others out there that aren't the ladies over at the PMA Manifesto or myself, I can almost guarantee that I've seen your documents. I know what they say. I know they're more than likely not the greatest. I don't want to say no good, because that really upsets people, because they pay anywhere from, $250 to $10,000 for some of this stuff, and it's garbage. And, I don't want to see anybody getting an association thinking that they have all these protections when they don't, because of some of these yahoos online that say, hey, well, if you have an association, you are in the private, you are out of their jurisdiction. If you are operating within your state, they have personal jurisdiction. It's simple as that. And so it's just important to understand what you're getting into, how to run it properly, what to do if you're challenged, and all those things that go in with the day-to-day operations of it. And that's what I've been consulting on a lot lately. So that's why it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to launch this consulting aspect of it. So it's outside of just the initial, hey, I want to schedule a half hour or an hour with you to discuss what I'm thinking of doing with an association, or maybe I want to see if it's a right fit for me. We can still do those calls, and I highly suggest it. Or, and then once we get into it, if you already have an association, we can cut right to the chase and say, okay, where did you get it from? What are you looking to do? What challenges are you facing? And then move on from there. And then if we deem that, maybe hiring me as a consultant to help you with some of these things to understand them better, then that's the route we'll go. I try to do as much as I can without charging people, but sometimes it's just overwhelming and I have too many people coming in, and I need to only really focus on working with the serious ones. And, those people that are able to say, hey, yes, I really want to get this done. And it's not, and I don't want to say time wasters, but, sometimes I get people that just want to talk, and I get that. And I have no problem with that on occasion, but I've been extremely busy lately. And that's why these episodes have been all over the place and that sort of thing. So I guess my takeaway from today, we're coming up in about 30 minutes, is that if you have an association, I don't care what type, ministry, free church, what have you, there are going to be challenges. And I want to make sure that you understand that. And I want to make sure that you understand how to not overreact to those challenges, and not get, I don't want to use scared or anxious about it, because you're not the first one. You're not going to be the last one. And as long as you're not doing anything illegal that would constitute a criminal violation, then you're going to be okay. We'll work through this. I point you in the right direction. And like I've told all the other people that I work with, I've said, it's out of my wheelhouse. I have no idea about that, but here's somebody that I think you could talk to. And I send them to an attorney or CPA or something like that. Because one thing I will never do is intentionally give you any bad advice or tell you what you want to hear. And I think that's why some people like working with me and coming over to hear what I have to say and watching these podcast episodes and stuff like that. But what I just don't want to see anybody getting, jammed up because they're believing what some clown said or something along those lines. So if you have an association, make sure you're running it properly. Be prepared for any challenges that might come up. Understand that it's just kind of goes with running an association and kind of on par for, taking back our freedom and, having to deal with keeping our members safe, our members private while dealing with the government interference that's eventually going to happen. So that's all. I normally don't do episodes like this. I kind of feel like this is a little all over the place, but that's because I don't have any notes. And I just wanted to kind of talk about this because it seems to be a recurring topic this past month where I've had a lot of people in February. Hey, I've had challenges. I've been this person knocked on my door. This person showed up. What should I do? How do I handle this? And I think that initial fear or anxiety comes because they were told one thing by somebody else on the internet, that no matter what you do, if you have a plumbing business that's a faith-based association, you can be tax exempt under the IRS 508C1A tax code. And then all of a sudden they realize that that's not the truth or something along those lines. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program, as long as nobody hits my truck in the parking lot again. But until tomorrow, peace and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This